like I got a dent in my head.
Hello.
Hi, Courtney.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing good. I am just going to jump off my camera really quick. I'm going to connect to 1807.
Okay.
Hey, how long do you think this thing is? Like an hour? Normally
Yeah,
half
about
an
an
hour.
hour,
Less time.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Because I got been like a wild day over here. So you. Uh,
There.
We are live.
Yes. All right. Looks like we are live everywhere. We're just going to give everybody a little bit of time to hop on, and then we'll go ahead and get started. How is everyone doing today?
Fantastic.
Good.
Good. Good to hear. And I'm just going to post the link as well to make sure everyone has access.
Patrick, I like the background. I like the setting.
hey, you like that?
Yeah, a lot better than mine.
Yeah. I'm lucky. I'm in one of our restaurants and it's like the most beautiful wallpaper. So I got lucky today.
Yeah, you got the lighting correct too. Everything's correct over there. Super jealous.
And we're just going to give it just a couple of minutes and then we'll get started.
Hey, Marcy. Hi, Emily.
All right, welcome in everybody. How is everybody doing today? Doing good?
Cannot complain in sunny San Diego.
Yes. Awesome. Well, we'll
It's
go
pretty
ahead and
beautiful in Toronto.
Toronto. Sweet.
love it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. There'll probably be people popping on throughout, but we're going to go ahead and start the conversation. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining. We are hosting this through Table 1807, and we're super honored to have this conversation with everybody today. If you haven't done so already, make sure you join Table 1807, and I'll be posting the link in the chat. It's a great space for culinary and hospitality professionals to engage in meaningful dialogue, spark new connections, and hear real stories about the everyday life. And we believe that working in the culinary industry takes a special blend of physicality, creative expression, and service. So make sure that you join that group to join in the discussion. And today for our roundtable discussion, we have the Burnt Chef Project here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Patrick, who's going to be leading up the discussion on the Burnt Chef side. Patrick's first job in the hospitality industry was at the age of 15 in a pizzeria, and he immediately fell in love with the restaurant industry. And for many years, the hustle and bustle, long hours, no day off, and missing all the family activities didn't faze him until eventually one day it did. He joined the Burnt Chef Project to tell his story and help others understand that it is okay to ask for help. To him, asking for help seemed to be a sign of weakness, but he later learned that it was a sign of strength. It is possible to create a meaningful life in the industry, but we must create balance, draw boundaries, and live mindfully. He's extremely grateful and honored to be a part of the Burnt Chef Ambassador program and looks forward to being a part of the revolution that disrupts the industry that he loves to eradicate the mental health stigma within hospitality. We also have Bria, who is our strategic partnership and brand manager, who's going to be helping out on the conversation. So I'm going to pass it off to the two of you to get things started.
I think Patrick and Courtney have the hard job today, but I will, I guess, start off by allowing Patrick to tell us a little bit more about the Burnt Chef Project for those who are unfamiliar. I know that there has been some content posted about the Burnt Chef Project in Table 1807, but I think just a reintroduction for the beginning of this conversation would be great. Patrick?
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, thanks for having us again. It's an honor to be here, and yeah, what today is just like a super casual conversation around mental health, and you know, really focusing on the hospitality industry. That's because that's where we work every day. But you know, it's not really meant to get into like deep stuff. But if you guys do feel, you know, like uncomfortable or whatever, or you guys need to talk afterwards, like you can reach out to me by messaging me. You can reach out to any of the other ambassadors on here. Like that's what we're here for. You know, I get a little bit emotional when I get on these things because it like just kind of like takes me back to like how bad stuff was for a while, you know, for me. And the reason why I'm here is because, you know, I lived through it. You know, I got through it. Got through to the other side. And you know, when I was young in the industry, I was like, you know, I started as like 21. I was a GM of a restaurant in South Beach, and you know, I loved it. I loved it. I loved the energy, kind of like everything that you just said. But you know, I was like one of those people always like just trying to chase the next thing, you know, the next title, the next job, the next anything. And so I put like my, you know, my life into this thing, like a lot of us do, you know, and it becomes like, you know, the restaurant life is our life, you know. It's like forget about family and friends and exercise and all this other stuff. So it's like my life became confused, you know, absorbed with working, you know, 6 days, 7 days a week, 12 hours, 14, you know, 15 hours a day was just like a normal thing, you know. And you know, I just grew up in the business from a young age, and that's just what I saw people do, and that's just what I did because I knew that's what it took to get to the next level. And you know, what happens in the restaurant business, you know, for me, when you know you work until 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, is that, you know, for me, how I blew off my steam is I went out, you know, go out drinking every night because you know, I lived in South Beach, and you know, here it's like everything's open, you know, till 5 a.m. So it's like no problem getting anything whenever you want it. And you know, I just kind of like put my family to the side, and any other thing to the side, you know. And you know, I think what happened to me is like problems just started to build, but I wasn't addressing anything. I was just like for me, it was alcohol. So it was like just hiding alcohol to cover everything, or to cover everything up. And that's the life that I lived in this business for a long time. And it's not meant to be like, I'm not here to tell you that the restaurant business is a terrible place to work, because it's like, I still love it. I still work the crazy hours, but our main purpose is to really just open up the conversation so people can feel safe about like talking about what's going on inside of them, because that was the first thing that I never did, was like let anything out. I held it all in because I was afraid to tell my boss that, like, I needed to take some time off to deal with myself, afraid to ask for a day off, afraid to take an hour to go to the beach, and all this different things, and I think the point is that this gives us an outlet to kind of like make everybody aware that it's like, it's a real issue, and this program is not just for chefs. I mean, I'm personally not a chef, but it's for the whole hospitality industry. There's people in whatever, cruise ships, casinos, everything, golf courses. So this is really for everybody. It just kind of like started as a chef thing, but like as you all know, it's a worldwide thing that we have to deal with. So the Burnt Chef is meant to like really support the industry as opposed to being against it. So we're here, if you check out our website, there's plenty of resources. First of all, like just talking about mental health. I did a talk at Florida International University, I think like maybe 2 months ago, for the hospitality students, and we kind of just like first just kind of like spoke about what mental health is, because it's like the truth is, like, a lot of people don't know what it means, and like the first thing is like when you hear mental health, we automatically like have a stigma about it, and like nobody wants to talk about it, like the room just goes quiet. And we're here to bring that voice and to make it loud and clear, like we can talk about it. There's nothing that you should be afraid that you can't talk about this subject. So that's kind of what we do. We go around, we train companies, schools, students, everywhere. There's resources on our website regarding talking about meditation, giving us, this is more about giving you solutions to how to deal with the daily life in the restaurant business, and for me, the key was like just really like building a routine, and a routine that didn't revolve around like going to the bar after work, right? And being able to just, most importantly, just set aside time for myself. So like, we'll go around the room and let everybody else talk as well, but like for me, it was really just like setting a routine where I wake up every day, and for me, it's like doing yoga is where I get my thing. I know every morning, like there's no meetings, the phone is off, I do my thing, I do my meditation, and that's how I start my day. And that's kind of like what's worked for me, and like right now I'm, I currently run 4 restaurants in South Florida, and they're big, busy restaurants, and it's like, my phone is going nonstop. It's like, I do still working 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day. Even on my days off, it's going crazy, but I'm able to like find ways to like to do it, and to set boundaries, and to make sure, like, if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to take care of my team. And that's kind of like how I see it, is make myself the priority, even though like most of the other 23 hours is to my team. But like, I need to make sure that like Patrick's taken care of, because if he's not, then I'm no good to anybody. So that's kind of like, my take on it. And I know there's a couple other ambassadors in here, so I just want to like kind of like let them introduce themselves. We're based in across the pond, they call it in England. But I'm in Miami. Jamie, I know, is in DC. We have a couple friends from Toronto and stuff on here. So I'm sorry, I don't actually know all of your names, but I'm going to start with Jamie, and then just raise your hand, and when you're the next ambassador, just kind of go, and then we'll just kind of take the conversation from there and see where it goes. Jamie, you want to go first?
Sure. Hey, y'all. Like as Patrick was saying, my name's Jamie. I'm out of DC. So if you're in the area, let me know. So I found the Burnt Chef Project maybe a year and a half ago. So I'm a baby ambassador. At least that's what I want to call it. But I got on, I became involved because it's such a passionate topic to talk about. And I actually, as depressing or like the stigma that comes along with it, I actually get really excited to talk about it because I find so much hope and so much sunshine and silver linings and listening to other stories. And once you start storytelling and sharing experiences, you kind of all realize that there's a common heartbeat here, right? Like we all have our identity is wrapped up into the whole hospitality industry, and we give so much of ourselves that sometimes we get a little lost or mixed up in that. And I remember really like very specific moments when I was like, I burnt out once already. I almost very came close to it maybe 2 years ago, and that's actually when I found the project myself. And then just very specific moments of just kind of feeling lost. Like this was an industry I loved, but at the same time, I felt very distant. And I'm sure that that's maybe a common heartbeat among the rest of us. But, I shared my story, and, I've been promoting it, mental health, and talking about it and getting it out there, that when it happened to me for the second time and I wasn't aware of it, as a leader, who was I going to talk to? Who was I going to lean on? I had to direct traffic. I had to get my people to where they needed to be. But it wasn't until that moment that I understood what it meant to actually be a leader. And it's your people actually looking out for you as well, and having the ability to come and talk to you and say, hey, your stress is killing us. We can't even do this. We think it's us. We want to be here for you, but we don't know how. And in that moment, I stopped and realized and acknowledged that. And I actually started going and talking to people and getting help. And I was looking more for like, not so much the issue, but like cognitive behavior. So like, if I felt like I needed to have an answer quickly, I was trying to get behaviors to like, hey, how do I stop that? And learning that stuff. So I always say, find a silver lining in the day, because sometimes we only get 5 minutes. Sometimes we get an hour, 2 hours. Mine is a hot shower and coffee. So very simple, but that's what it rolls down to. So I'll pass the buck off to somebody else.
I think I see Michael Catano available, possibly. Anyone else? Okay, Patrick.
We want to hear from Michael Catano. I guess he'll jump on when he's ready. No, I mean, we could just kind of go around the room. I mean, does anybody have any questions, things they want to talk about? Yeah.
I have a lot of friends in the industry, and I do think kind of what Jamie was just saying is that like sometimes when people don't feel like they have a place to be safe in, they do look back at the kitchen and the people that they work with and see more often than their family. I think some of my friends are in a very similar situation where like I'm a source of joy for them because I'm outside of their normal stressors. But I do enjoy having relationships with those individuals, and also, being able to help them get through something that I may not be super familiar with, but obviously understand as a human, like what they're going through. Marcy also has been in the industry for quite a while. I think she's probably seen more than enough within this topic. Maybe she can add some insight to her experience.
Yeah, being in this industry for, I have to admit it, 34 years, it's definitely a long time to be in one industry. And I've seen a lot of mental illness. And I think the best part of this whole thing is that people are becoming more aware and able to talk about it. And the stressors that, come within the kitchen, not only their kitchen, but just the life of the hospitality industry, constantly being on constantly being on, and pleasing other people and making sure that everything is correct. And, just, it gets really hard, trying to be a people pleaser all the time. I think Louis also can really talk about the mental health aspect of it as well. I mean, I think just as growing up, it's a very difficult time when you're trying to balance life and I say life and your work-life balance. It's really difficult. And I don't think anyone really started talking about it till literally before COVID, but really after COVID. I think it's become more aware, you know what I mean? Lou?
So what I find, I think we're going through change in the industry now is because people realize this is a major problem. And what I always ask someone, what do you do post shift? Because you're on this high rush. And how do you come down besides the obvious, alcohol and drugs and rock and roll, how it used to be. So I'm going to ask the ambassadors, what would you advise to anyone who's starting in the industry or in the industry? What do you do post shift? How do you come down? Because I know when I worked in a deli, but you just have this high and it's over. What do you do?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's a good subject. And I agree with what Marcy was saying too, just like about like the after COVID is kind of like really like the restaurant like drastically changed. I was in it before and I was in it during and I got through afterwards, and people's perception of like a real work-life balance is like absolutely changed. I remember having people that servers, they want that cash or whatever, or even in the kitchen, like everybody always working doubles and like working 5 days and 6 days. And like now it's like people, they don't want to do that anymore. Like that's just the straight truth. Like I have people that they only want to work 3 days. Some people want to work 4 days. So like what I've kind of made a commitment for my teams is to try to really like they don't work, I don't try not to schedule people on doubles anymore, because I know it's like you just become useless after working the doubles. I mean, it's just like you're fried, and I know from doing it. So it's like me as an employer and a company, I try to like protect my team in that way. I try to implement ideas like, for example, in my restaurants, we post and a service checklist, which you can get from our website as well. And it just kind of gives you different ideas, but like for me, kind of always just goes back to that at the end of the shift, end of the night is always like that silence time and like the meditation. And I'm lucky I live in good weather all year round, so I can go for walks. I can walk to the beach. So like for me, it's like connecting with nature. I do like a little bit of like slower kind of yoga at nighttime, and it's like it just kind of like brings me down in a sense, the same way that like the alcohol and the drugs did, but like I wake up the next day and I'm ready to go. I'm not still feeling it from the day before, so it takes just like, again, like setting up that routine where it doesn't have to be a whole elaborate hour of anything. It could be 5 minutes at night that you go sit, turn off all the lights and just sit there in silence, for 5 minutes. Or you can't do 5 minutes, do 1 minute, and then eventually it builds into other stuff. But I think for me, a lot of like the winding down and it's just like getting out of my head and just start like reach out to others, reach out to friends. Most everybody I know works in the restaurant business, so it's like we're all up late, reach out to other people, talk to other people. Like I said, just go out, move around, go for a walk. Like that's the best thing. Burn out that energy for me.
I agree. I think physical activity is probably the number one source of combating. You're in Miami. I think my example is in San Diego. Maybe it's the good weather that all these things have in common, but one of the restaurant groups here has a gym day, a gym morning. for their off hours, where the entire team is basically powerlifting. And I think that's truly unique. And, you know, one of their goals is, you know, to support their team members and also the industry as a whole, is to have an industry day at the gym that they're using. And I think obviously, like how you said, like employers making the decisions that directly benefit individuals, like in the hospitality industry, when it comes to physical activity or togetherness in general, camaraderie, team building. I think making decisions like that is where it starts, right? And then getting everyone to commit to something like that is a whole other thing. But I think as a part of your, what is it, your core values, it starts there.
Yeah, so I often, anybody who's starting, has been in, or is continuing to going, like, I think over the course of time that I've been in, I guess, you know, coming down off that high has changed. You know, younger, it was the alcohol was going out, because you still want to be around these people and hang out, and like, you're all kind of in the same vibe. And now, as I've gotten a little bit older, it's changed. So I actually kind of plan out the day in a weird way. Like, I know that high is coming, and I know it's going to take me a while to come down from that. So I'll actually leave like some chore at home that I have to do, so I can buzz around the house and do it. Take my dog out for a walk. That's a great time to get on the phone, like Patrick was saying, and talk to somebody. You know, time zone difference actually really helps sometimes. If someone's 6 hours behind you, guess what? That's catch up time. There's a lot out there nowadays, almost sometimes just a little too much, because even though we are on this high, we want to connect with people, we also need to not connect. We also need to be able to kind of come back into our senses, so that when we wake up in the morning, we feel refreshed, we feel great. And it can be done during like that long hot shower at night. It could be going for a walk, having a dog, you know, just driving around maybe a few more minutes around the block before you actually walk inside your house, or wherever you may be. There's a lot out there, and I think within your team you can also get pretty creative. Like, sometimes we'll go out and have like a really nice dinner. Instead of cooking, we're going out, or we're doing like other activities together, or we're just checking on each other. Like at the end of the night, like, hey, did you make it home? Okay, great. It's simple little things like that can absolutely change somebody's world.
Agreed. Patrick, you guys have a post-shift checklist. Is that something that is readily available on social, or how does one access that?
Yeah, you can go directly to the website. And everything is there. I'm trying to think where it is. I'm on it now. Let's see to tell you exactly. I think there's a place for free resources. You go on there and you go into support, and there's free resources. And then one other thing I wanted to like highlight, and I forgot to mention earlier, and it's like kind of a big deal, I think, especially like for people late night, is we do have like a 24-hour hotline, and that's available everywhere. So like UK, US, and Canada we have our own line on that side, and that's available also on the website. But it's like literally you can call for whatever. If you're lonely and you're alone and you're going crazy inside your head and you need somebody to talk to, you text them and they call you back, I think within like 5-10 minutes. So it you know, it could be for whatever. If you're going through a breakup and you don't have anybody to talk to, or you have financial issues, I don't think they're going to give you money, but you know, they're there to talk to you about it. And you know, drugs, alcohol, anything. And then, you know, they have further resources from you for you through that. So that's something that, like, I have that posted in my restaurants too, and it's like an anonymous thing. So it's like, I don't need to know anything about it. It's on the wall. If they want to call, they can call. But it's just something great that, like, you know, that's kind of like, for me, when I was my craziest was at 3 o'clock in the morning, when everybody was gone and it was just like me in my head going like, you know, and like, I think that's like when we need it the most. But it's it's available 24 hours and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You just pick up the phone and text them.
And we have posted that in table 1807 for ease of access as well. Are there any other questions or statements or anything we can?
I have one other little statement that I like to put into this mix, and maybe this will give you a different perspective of how to maybe approach mental health or talk about it in your spaces. So I use the analogy of like, hey, if we wanted to go learn how to play soccer or football, we're going to go get a coach. If we want to make our minds stronger, we need a coach. So sometimes just getting that thought process and looking at it through a different lens, we can address it a little bit better. Like, let's go get a coach and get this thing right. Or, you know, or
Mentor.
ways to try.
Yeah, I think doing anything in isolation probably isn't the route. So having someone to share and also guide in that journey is definitely most ideal.
Yeah, different people need different things too.
For sure.
We do have, you know, we have our introverts and we have our extroverts, and
For
sometimes
sure.
introverts need the quiet time, the candle, or whatever works for them, and extroverts need the people. So
I think stigma is also a thing too. So
very much
like
so.
as Patrick mentioned.
Very much so.
Courtney, anyone have anything else to add? I don't want to keep you guys on for too long. If
Looks like we got Emily. Emily's got her
Emily.
hand up.
Emily, go ahead. All you.
I just wanted to quickly jump in with a question about, you know, today, right? Like right now, how are things, what's been implemented in your life or in your restaurants, or that you want to see implemented in your life or restaurants that can help other people not suffer the burnout or not get to that point? Like, what are things in real time that people are doing or that you're doing to kind of help newer chefs coming into the fold, or maybe people that are just starting out, coming from culinary school or into their first positions?
Yeah, I think that entrance part is something like, hey, how do you prepare for something you don't know you're going to go through? That's
Right.
probably.
I know culinary is really intense, and then when you're getting in onto the line, or when you're coming into a new kind of world, you know, what's the best advice, or what's the best thing that you think restaurants can do to implement for, like, you know, newer people coming in, as well as kind of mentorship, maybe veterans in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my point of view, couple different things that we've implemented and stuff that we're still working on. But like, we have a diversity and inclusion committee, like company wide, and I'm part of that. And you know, it goes really like beyond that. But like, if you kind of think about like diversity and inclusion, it also has a lot to do with, you know, mental health as well, because, you know, I don't know from experience, but like people who grow up in different cultures, and, you know, there's a lot of mental health revolved around that. Like when you're growing up and you're going to school and you're trying to build your career. So we have outlets in that way. And part of that committee is we're also going to have like a small little section that's going to be based on around mental health. And we're going to, like, you know, hold like small meetings about that. So anybody who wants to join and, you know, learn about mental health, and more importantly, like learn about like solutions and resources and how you can, like, you know, my goal is to really teach the younger people. And I have a lot of, like, you know, younger leaders that are growing up through the ranks within just in my region. And it's like really kind of like coaching them in a sense of like how to live life. And like, it's not all about like going out all night long, because, you know, and just being, you know, like, it's almost like just opening up the door to let them know, like, it's okay to talk about this stuff. So it's like more about like us bringing it up, you know, in groups. And, you know, I've, you know, had conversations with, you know, this is like, you know, this is a real thing. Like, you know, I've had conversations with my managers. You know, one of them came up to me a couple months ago talking about how she wanted to like jump in front of a train the night before. So it's like, I think it's just like being available to like I'm not here to tell her what to do about it, but I'm here as like an outlet for her to like all I do is just sit there and listen. And like what I've realized through that exercise is like that person across from me kind of comes up with their own solution just by like getting it out and talking about it, you know. So I think that's the main thing that we can do as leaders is just be there for people. I do weekly one-on-ones with my like direct reports, and like one of the things that we talk about is work-life balance, you know, and like, you know, like being able to openly talk about it, you know, scale your work-life balance from a 1 to 10, you know, and let's talk about it. And like I do that with my boss as well. So I sit there and like sometimes my work-life balance is a 1. And it's like, okay, well, how can we move that up to a 5, you know, or sometimes it's a 10, and it's like, okay, great, high 5. So it's like, it's a real thing, but I think it's like, you also have to be open and honest about it. Like if I was doing that exercise 10 years ago, it would have always been the 10, but inside my life would have been on fire. But I think like now it's like, we're able to like just openly and honestly talk about it. And it's okay if my work balance is a 1, you know, but it's like, but the point is like now we're able to like just talk about it and like us together as a team figure out like how we can make things better. So I think, you know, for me, that's kind of like things that we've been working on as a company. I'll pass it on if anybody else wants to talk.
Yeah, I want to answer Emily's question a little bit. Like a big part I find, obviously, as we all know, working in the industry, there's been massive turnover rates for years, and obviously labor shortages. There's no doubt, and COVID has obviously shine a big, massive media light on that, right? The general public knows that, and people coming into culinary schools or coming into this line of work in general are obviously wondering why that is. Obviously, because they're so green to the industry, and obviously looking at it from obviously going through those times myself, and then obviously running and managing teams. I think the main thing that we have to really think about for those people, if they're high school students coming into maybe more like family style, like lower end restaurants, if you think about like the style of service, or even culinary students coming into fine dining, it's the onboarding process of actually bringing them in, having the meetings with them, letting them know what their actual tasks are. I've always heard this saying, and I've been subject to it myself, where it's just that idea of throwing them in the deep end and letting us see if they can actually swim, right? And you're not always given a life jacket. It's, yeah, doing that, but making sure that you are their life jacket. Let's see if they can swim and the skills that they have up to there, but knowing that if they need someone to hold on to as they're treading water, we are that support system. Because if we're not there supporting them, like during that onboarding session, within a couple of weeks, couple of months, hopefully we can get to that first year. But we have such a high turnover rate. So like the fact that we're just letting them like just tread water by themselves, and that kind of level of stress right when they get into that workplace, like it's going to destroy them like mentally and physically, right? So we have to make sure that the onboarding sessions are really there, having that time to talk to them, because as we all know, if it's our line of work or whatever line of work it is, we all learn at different rates, different speeds, and in different styles, right? So yeah, we can give someone a textbook based on, hey, this is the menu, this is what we do here, but some people actually have to see that hands-on, or vice versa, right? So really having a sit down with these people before they even get into the kitchen or onto the dining room floor, seeing how they actually learn and how they're really going to grasp these concepts, and then like really focusing on the onboarding down to that individual, because it's not just a one shoe fits all kind of scenario, right? So we have to really tailor this down to these individuals, and that's going to make them feel obviously a lot more important and a lot more seen and heard, and they're going to obviously want to do their best, knowing that they have that support system. Nobody wants to just be thrown into the fire, left to figure it out, and then going through service or whatever and getting reamed at by their boss or their managers or whatever. And they've never been told, oh, you know what? This is actually part of my day-to-day tasks. How am I supposed to know this is how I'm supposed to do, or the fact that I even have to do this in general? I've worked in so many places where it's just like, yeah, you have the job, here's your position, but you don't even know what's like on your plate for you to do. And there's a lot of just figuring it out. And that's why people are like, oh, it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 months to get into the job and actually know the ropes of it, if you will. But I feel that these new people coming into it should know that before even starting the job itself. So they actually have the right ideas in place of what they're actually going to have to do, and then that way they can obviously physically mentally prepare coming into that job, and obviously if and when they do have questions, to have the answers for them and have that support. Because within those first couple months of them trying to figure out to see if they can fit is going to be the time that they're going to end up leaving. So if we can make that transition of them coming into these workplaces that much easier, we're going to have such a better and higher rate of retention.
That's awesome. Do you think that adding like maybe skill set options to your onboarding process, like budgeting, or even like explaining the physicality of your job? Like, I know a lot of people are working doubles, and what that does to the body is really intense. And so to prepare people, I guess, for, you know, the long hours and the physical aspect of it. And then, yeah, just kind of like how do you guys give reviews? Do you guys have like rolling reviews for your employees that you encourage them to come and talk to you? Because I know that one-on-ones are like pretty important when you're starting out through the onboarding process as well. So are you adding that in when you're training people? Do you kind of sync them up with a mentor?
I think I'll speak for myself. I think that's the best way to do it. Obviously, when you think of someone coming out of culinary school, you want to pair them up with a veteran that's gone through like these stages, like probably 10 times already, right? And if you can have that depth on your squad within your front of house, back of house, whatever team it is, it's good to really pair that up, right? Because there's going to be so much insight that is given that you're not going to learn in these textbooks or these teachings in a culinary classroom, or just learning it as you go if you're not even doing like formal like post-secondary education, if you will, right? So pairing them up with other veterans and even just being the leader on the team, like, you know what it actually takes, and knowing that, hey, these are certain skill sets you might want to really focus on for this position, or hey, maybe this position, sorry, is maybe a bit more grueling because you're working in this kind of environment, or you're going to be next to a hot grill. This is the type of like where you should be working because you're going to be sweating all the time, or you're going to be lifting up boxes and stuff. So like this is the kind of safety equipment that's going to be there, or you should like really think about like, the body and the mind if it's like certain types of jobs. So I think it should be really scaled down, like the kind of teachings and the skill sets that are needed for specific jobs, because every single one is different. Like it's easy to say, oh, if you're going to be on the meat station, obviously you're going to have to know how to work with different proteins. If you're a pastry chef, you're going to have to work with like obviously know your pastry skills. But I think that's obviously just the tip of the iceberg, right? And that's obviously scaled down to the individual shops that we work at, and the spaces and the people that we work with, right? So like it's a very like obviously loaded question for sure, but it has to be really scaled in down to like the nitty gritties, because that's what's going to lead to the best success for these people to come into.
Thank you so much. I love the stress guide that's on the Burnt Chef website. I think it's relatable to every job that people have. So thanks so much for your time and for chiming in on my question. Appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, I guess I have one other note. It's funny because obviously of all the problems that we've had individually, or even things that we can relate to as a group, I do a lot of work with kids in education, if it's elementary school, middle school, high school, and even post-secondary. And yeah, it's really cool to help teach and inspire, say, the next generation to come in. But even like today, before this call, I was talking to kids in grade 1. So obviously very far off from students actually coming into our line of work. So it's obviously not the same conversations I would have with students at the post-secondary level. But a lot of the questions is just like, why are you a chef? Why do you cook food? Like, why are you doing this? And there's so many times also we get caught up in the day-to-day hustles and the stress of it and the grind of it all. But it's just really trying to take that time. And maybe I'm very fortunate to have that time to really reflect and think about, oh yeah, the main reason we actually all came into this industry because it's actually fun. And I know we all have bills to pay, there's priorities, we have families to take care of and so on. But the bottom line is like we all got into this because of the passion. And unfortunately, up till now, and even in some places, some owners are abusing our passion for their own greed and their own worth, but we have to take a step back to know our worth and really like realizing again why we got into this in the first place, and obviously pushing that love and that passion to the new people that are coming into this industry and the people that were able to stay up within this industry post COVID, because that's what's kept us going, and that's what's going to keep us moving forward, is that love and passion in what we do.
I think that's super interesting, because I think half of the internet is now cooking on
That's it.
camera. And it's taking like the passion that you all have and isolating it to a self content driven based job, which is equally as stressful. So it's really interesting that you can remove yourself from the kitchen and still suffer and struggle with the pressures of being a chef as a creator. So that's interesting.
I also think it's one of the most personal reflections of yourself as well, because I mean, like you're saying, like you are just giving your passion, like you are expressing yourself to the fullest, and we do it with such pride and, you know, hope, because we're connecting. We want to connect, we want to please, we want to show, we want to have people enjoy what we're providing. I mean, I think helping with providing the why also helps with the understanding of why these people are there. I mean, everybody's individual is different. Everybody's, you know, drive is totally different. And it's just knowing your people, giving them the why. And to Emran's point, I'm sorry for pronouncing it wrong. He nailed it with like being a life jacket and, you know, setting the stage when they come in, because I mean, it does take grit, and we've got to have that grit as well. But it's also navigating around that to make it doable, and knowing when your limit has been reached. And that goes for the people who are guiding us as well, or, you know, because we need our life jackets as well. And whether it's in industry or out of industry, you just need that life jacket.
Exactly, and that's what obviously Patrick touched on earlier, is that like you have to take care of yourself first before anyone else. Obviously, leading up to say this point in time, sustainability's been a massive talking point. If it's down to the ingredients, down to the ware that we're using for takeout, for what we've done obviously throughout COVID and whatnot, sustainability's been a massive talking point, and still is now, based on going green. But I feel obviously this is what the Burnt Chef is probably going to is known for, is the sustainability of people. If I'm not taking care of myself and my team, we can't worry about using less practice and using the best products and being sustainable on that point. You got to think about the bottom line. And the bottom lines, I don't mean that in money, we're talking about the people. If you focus on the sustainability of your health, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, and then your teams, all the other things will fall into place. If they are being taken care of and they are feeling like they are being heard and they're getting fed, whatever they need down to the individual basis, they're going to put in the work to make the business thrive and to offer that kind of level of hospitality that we're all thriving for, right? So it's really about thinking about that, the real bottom line, what sustainability is, and it's the sustainability of our staff and putting their priorities first. If you're a business owner, they're not working, if your employees don't work for you, you're working for them. You're creating a place that they want to come to every day and that they feel proud to be of. Because yeah, your name might be on the lease or on the door in a sense, but without that team, as we know, there's no I in team, right? So it's that whole mentality of taking care of that squad, and they're going to be willing to work 10 times harder for people that respect them, and they're going to offer that respect and that love back to you, and they're going to put that energy into that end product.
Sustainability in humans. I like that. Okay.
Mind if I just jump onto that Imran point?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Brandon. I'm from Canada, such as Imran. We're the Chiefs of Canada, so we're really happy to be here. But yeah, talking about sustainability and people, we're at a time now where we all need chefs. We all are in dire need of chefs, and the young generation coming in, they know how they feel. They're in touch with their feelings. You know, they know what they want, they know what they need, and they know as well that they can go absolutely anywhere to get the job. So when we're talking about sustainability with people, to Imran's point, you have to give these things to them because they know that if it's not good for them, they can just go get another job before they even walk out the door. So it's really important for us that the younger generation and the current generation, even the one before us, they need to know that it has to be for them, because if it's not for them, then they're just going to leave. And if we don't have people, it doesn't matter how amazing our food is or how amazing our service is, you can't do it alone. It doesn't matter if you're the best restaurant in the world or like a mom and pop diner, it doesn't matter. You need the people. And the only way you're going to keep them now is to make them feel heard and make them feel special and to give them the things they need. So I think human sustainability is far and away the most important thing. And that's why I think we're all really excited to be part of the Burnt Chef is because of that. It's about making that known to everyone that people are people, and it is very important to create that specific, not just onboarding, but the entire time they're working to make them feel very special and unique.
That is so funny. That generation is very much so. It's not for me.
Well, which I find
that.
kind of, I find it kind of funny because, like, to Brandon's point, to like say that younger generation, we think that maybe they're more needy in a sense, or they want certain things in practice and they want them like themselves to be heard and supported and stuff. But we've been conditioned. Like, why are we conditioned to think that's so weird? And that shouldn't be, like, that should be how it should have
Agreed.
always been. So the fact that we've been conditioned to think that that's such a foreign thing is to get benefits, to have breaks, to maybe eat something that didn't come out of a deep fryer between a 12-hour, 14-hour shift, right? It's like these little things. We think it's such a foreign thing that the younger generations asking for. And I take a step back, I'm like, what the hell? Like, we should have been having this like the whole damn time, to be honest.
Yeah, I think
So,
I'm
yeah,
cussed.
maybe
Yeah. I don't know everyone else on this
pretty
call,
bad.
but I think I'm cussed. I know a little bit about that. But yeah, I
Like this
think we
paradox.
from our mindset.
I was just gonna say, I think we're to everyone's point, like I think we're just kind of in this middle paradox of like, hey, the old school way of, you know, chef says it, done, and it's evolving, it's changing because we want everybody's voices to be heard, but you know, done within a manner that works. I mean, if you're only hearing a bunch of voices, sometimes it's like squawking and we don't understand. But if
Echo chamber.
yeah, if we can structure it correctly, or we can structure it in a manner that works, because everything is different at every location. Like what works for one does not work for another. That's what helps with storytelling and sharing stories, because one little thing will work someplace and not work so great at others. So I think that we're kind of in this paradox of like wanting change, getting change, learning from the old, learning from
And
the
also
new.
being the change, right? I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
it takes a lot to step outside of what, for an industry like yours and like mine in particular, to step outside what everyone knows is obviously like frowned upon most of the time.
Yeah.
But it can be to the success of the greater whole when
Yeah,
one
I think
individual chooses.
the only truth in the whole thing is that we're always trying to beat the clock, but the clock always wins. So
Okay.
No,
Any
just
other
to
ambassadors?
chime in
Oh,
there. My name is Brent. I'm also from Canada, the Canadian team here. To go on from Brandon and Imran, talked about the younger generation. I've been doing this since I was probably 15 years old, and I went into IT world and did point of sale for about 5 years, and it was nice just like seeing them running around like crazy in the back of the kitchen saying, I don't need to do that and I'm good. And then it kind of sucked me back in, and now I own my own restaurant. But talking about the younger generation, I have twin boys that are 9, and past few years with homeschooling was home cafe schooling. So they kind of learned, and they saw, mom and dad working and learning the whole thing, and seeing it while they were doing school, they were also learning. And then the worst part, them going back to school, is they had no snacks every other second because they were in the restaurant. But it was one of those things that you try and teach them, is that, you know what, mommy and daddy do this for you guys, and that's the whole point. Young enough, but hopefully they take it over when you can, right?
agreed. My mom is telling me that I've picked up some of her habits that I should have never picked up. But she's just now telling me that, and I don't appreciate it.
Yeah, my whole family was kind of in restaurants, and when I first said I was going to culinary school, my cousin who works with some really high-end chefs out here, and he said, you're nuts, 8 hours is a short shift. And I said, yeah, I know. And I started the CN Tower, so we did crazy volumes, 500-600 for lunch or 1,000 for dinner, and you just kind of did. I remember tongs in one hand, towel in the other. I just kept going now, and now the slow pace, like it might be a little loud in here because I'm just doing a catering tonight, and I was talking to somebody today. I said, "Oh, it's a small catering. It's only 50 people," and they look at me like, "That's not small." And I said, "It is to me. That's our normal life nowadays, right? A few hundred people is it's normal, But it's kind of that work-life balance, and that's where I joined the Burnt Chef probably just in February. So I think Jamie was saying she's a little baby. I'm not even talked about apparently, according to you. So that works out. But it's a great Canadian team that we have, the small team we have, but it's great support. And then also I met Chris not long ago at the Restaurant Canada show, and just really like the whole concept of everything. And here we are now talking about it still.
Yeah, and I obviously feel like super connected to the mission that you guys all have. And for me, as a part of Table 1807 and not being in the industry directly, I think it's something, it's a place and a tool that I can, help the individuals that I'm in relation with. So obviously, thank you for giving us access to a resource that, isn't isolated, but is specific, which is very special, right?
All right, and it looks like we are about to wrap up. So if there are any more questions, we have time for one more question. Does anyone have one final question for the group before we wrap up?
I do real quick. Favorite meal that you've had this month, or favorite new food that you've tried?
Yeah, I like this question.
I love it.
Who wants to go first? Louis just got from
Actually,
New York.
I didn't hear the question. I couldn't hear it. Sorry.
Favorite meal that you've had recently? I think Louis just got back from New York. Had to have a good meal there.
I can tell a funny story. I made Keith McNally's daily report in the background. I don't know who follows Keith McNally from Balthazar, but he had a report about a dog that came in for a meal, and there I am in the background.
I've seen the photo. It's clearly him.
But
Brandon, it looks like you may have had an answer. Oh, sorry.
I'll just make a comment. It's fantastic to have something like the Burnt Chef and also other organizations out there now. Compared to when we all came into the industry, there was nothing. So there are resources. Check on your friends. There's still horrible stories going on. You hear of this one and that one. You never know. So just check on your friends and love your loved ones and friends and all. And thank you very much.
Yes, I don't think I could have done a better wrap up than what Louis just said right there. So thank you, Louis. And thank you so much, Burnt Chef, for coming on and having this conversation with us. We're definitely going to continue the conversation within Table 1807. So make sure you continue to join the discussion there. And if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out. But thank you all for joining today. And a big thank you to Burnt Chef for helping facilitate this conversation today. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you all have an excellent day. And yeah, we will continue this conversation over in 1807. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out there.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.